It was a cold, moonless night, and I had just left a friend's party. My small town was nestled among dense forests, and the winding roads seemed to stretch on endlessly. As I drove down the dark, deserted highway, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The radio crackled to life, filling the silence in the car with a sudden burst of static. I reached over to turn it off, but before I could, a voice echoed through the speakers, cold and emotionless. "Take the next exit," it said. My heart raced. I hadn't heard any mention of an exit on this road. I glanced at my GPS, but it showed no upcoming exits. The voice on the radio repeated its command, growing more insistent. "Take the next exit." A chilling sense of dread washed over me as I scanned the dark highway for any signs of an exit. After a few moments of hesitation, I spotted it, a small, unmarked road veering off to the right. It was shrouded in darkness, and there were no signs to indicate where it led. The voice on the radio continued, "Take the exit now." Fear gnawed at me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. My instincts told me not to follow this eerie command, so I drove past the unmarked exit and tried to put it out of my mind. The radio fell silent once more. As I continued down the desolate road, I couldn't help but feel a creeping sensation that I was being watched. My headlights pierced the inky blackness, revealing nothing but the winding asphalt ahead. I was miles away from the nearest gas station or town, and my phone had no signal. Suddenly, the voice returned, more persistent and ominous than before. "You should have taken the exit." The panic inside me grew, but I resisted the urge to turn the radio off. Instead, I clenched the steering wheel and sped up. The voice on the radio grew louder, almost pleading, "You don't understand. You need to turn around." My heart pounded in my chest as I considered my options. The voice had become increasingly sinister, and the isolation of the empty highway only added to my terror. I knew I couldn't trust the mysterious voice on the radio. I continued driving, determined to escape whatever sinister plot was unfolding. The voice grew angrier, demanding my compliance, but I refused to relent. After what felt like an eternity, I finally reached the next town, and the voice fell silent. When I pulled into a gas station and rushed inside to use the phone, the attendant seemed puzzled by my story. There was no record of the mysterious voice on the radio, and no one else had reported a similar experience. I left the station, shaken but relieved, knowing I had made the right decision not to take that unmarked exit. To this day, I can't shake the memory of that eerie car ride, haunted by the voice that had tried to lure me into the unknown. I'll always wonder what would have happened if I had given in to its sinister commands, but I'm grateful I trusted my instincts and drove on, leaving the unmarked exit behind in the darkness. It was a stormy night, and the torrential rain hammered on the roof of my car. I was driving alone on a desolate, winding road that cut through a dense forest. My anxiety grew with each mile I put behind me. The radio was my only companion, its static-filled voices providing some semblance of connection to the outside world. As I navigated the slick roads, a sudden burst of static interrupted the music. I reached for the radio to turn it off, but before I could, a voice, icy and emotionless, sliced through the noise, "Take the next exit." My heart skipped a beat. There was no mention of an exit on this road, and my GPS displayed no upcoming turns. The voice on the radio repeated its command, this time with a disturbing urgency, "Take the next exit." My hands clenched the steering wheel as I searched the darkness for any sign of an exit. After a moment of hesitation, I spotted it, a small, unmarked road veering off to the right. It was cloaked in darkness, and I had no idea where it led. The voice on the radio grew insistent, "Take the exit now." Fear surged through me, but something inside warned me not to follow this eerie command. I sped past the unmarked exit, and the voice on the radio fell silent. The relief was short-lived, as a loud pop echoed through the car, and the steering wheel wrenched to the side. Panic gripped me as I realized my front tire had blown out. I wrestled with the car's unsteady control and managed to pull it to the side of the road, the rain continuing to pour outside. I fumbled for my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The forest loomed dark and menacing on one side, and the unmarked exit I had ignored beckoned ominously on the other. The voice on the radio returned, now a sinister whisper, "You should have taken the exit." I couldn't help but feel that something supernatural was at play, that the voice had foreseen this very moment. Fearful and desperate, I made the decision to change the flat tire myself. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't bring myself to take the unmarked exit. As I struggled with the tire in the pouring rain, the voice on the radio continued to haunt me, growing more menacing with each passing moment. Finally, after what felt like hours, I managed to replace the tire and get back on the road. The voice on the radio fell silent, and I drove on through the storm, shaken and wet, but relieved to have escaped whatever sinister forces had tried to lure me into the unknown that night. The memory of the haunting flat tire and the voice that seemed to predict it will stay with me forever, a chilling reminder of the unexplained mysteries that can occur on a dark and stormy night. It was a bone-chilling night, and I was driving alone along a seemingly endless highway that cut through desolate farmland. The moon hung low in the cloudy sky, casting eerie shadows over the barren landscape. The only solace in this isolated drive was my trusty radio. As I ventured deeper into the desolation, the radio suddenly crackled to life, filling the car with static. I reached for the radio, intent on silencing it, but before I could, a voice, devoid of emotion, came through, "Take the next exit." My heart raced. I hadn't seen any mention of an exit on the road ahead, and my GPS didn't indicate any turns. The voice on the radio repeated its command, growing more insistent, "Take the next exit." A shiver ran down my spine as I scanned the highway for any sign of an exit. Eventually, I spotted it, a small, unmarked road veering off to the right. It seemed to lead into the void, with no signs to provide any clue about its destination. The voice on the radio grew more demanding, "Take the exit now." Fear gripped me, but my instincts told me not to follow this eerie command. I sped past the unmarked exit, and the voice on the radio fell silent. But my relief was short-lived. A loud, metallic clank echoed from the car's engine, and it shuddered to a halt. Panic washed over me as I realized the car had broken down in the middle of nowhere. I fumbled to restart the engine, but it remained dead. I reached for my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The open farmland stretched in every direction, offering no signs of civilization or shelter. The unmarked exit I had ignored still lingered nearby, an unsettling reminder of the voice's sinister intent. Then, the voice on the radio returned, a sinister whisper that seemed to gloat, "You should have taken the exit." I knew I had to make a choice. I could stay with the car and hope for help to arrive, or I could venture down the unmarked exit, taking a leap into the unknown. But my gut told me that the voice on the radio was not to be trusted, and that whatever lay down that road was far worse than the isolation of my current predicament. With determination, I decided to stay by the car, hoping for rescue. The voice on the radio persisted, growing more malevolent with every word, but I remained steadfast. Hours passed, and finally, a passing motorist stopped to offer assistance. With their help, I was soon on my way, leaving behind the eerie highway and the haunting voice. The car breakdown that night was a nightmare, but it was a fate I preferred to the unknown horrors that might have awaited me on the unmarked exit.